When something awful happens, you'd think the initial event is the worst part. But what if it isn't? What if the real, lasting damage comes after, from the very people, the very institutions that were supposed to have your back? Well, there's a name for this devastating experience, and it's something we absolutely need to talk about. It's called institutional betrayal.
Just let that sink in for a second. I could have survived what he did. I can't survive what they did. That's a direct quote from a 10th grader. She had just gone through something horrific, a sexual assault, and she did exactly what she was supposed to do. She went to her school for help. She was looking for safety, for support. But what she got instead, well, it turned out to be so much worse.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth can a school's response be more damaging than the actual assault? Well, here's what happened in her case. The school's investigation was a joke. It lasted 45 minutes. The assistant principal asked the boy if he did it. He said no, and that was it. Case closed. No witnesses were ever interviewed. And that's when this student's world really started to fall apart. Not just because of the assault, but because of this crushing, soul-destroying feeling of being completely and utterly dismissed.
And there it is. That's the official term for what she went through: institutional betrayal. It happens when a place you absolutely depend on for safety, like a school or the military or even a hospital, doesn't just fail to protect you, but actually makes things worse with how they respond. We're not talking about a simple mistake here. This is a deep, fundamental violation of trust.
So you might be thinking, what makes this so different? Why does it hurt so much in a school? It all comes down to what's called the dependency relationship. I mean, think about it. This isn't like getting bad service at a restaurant where you can just decide never to go back. Kids are legally forced to be at school. The school has physical control over them, huge power over their future. They're vulnerable, and they can't just up and leave. That dependency is exactly why this kind of betrayal cuts so deep.
Okay, so betrayal can sound a little vague, right? But it's not. Researchers have actually pinpointed specific, predictable actions that make up this betrayal. So let's break it down. What does this actually look like in practice?
All right, first up are two of the classics, and they are awful: minimization and victim blaming. Minimization is that whole, oh, it's not that serious, kids will be kids line, just brushing it all under the rug. And then you've got victim blaming, which is even worse. It's when they turn it around on the person who was hurt, asking things like, well, what did you do to provoke them? Or why were you even there? Both of these are just ways for the school and the person who did the harm to dodge any and all responsibility. And it just keeps going. The betrayal gets deeper when the institution starts protecting itself instead of the student. You see it in sham investigations, just like the one we talked about, basically just going through the motions. You see it when they protect the perpetrator because they don't want to ruin their future. And of course the big one, covering things up to protect the school's reputation because God forbid it looks bad.
And if all that wasn't bad enough, then come the final blows: retaliation and gaslighting. Retaliation is exactly what it sounds like. They punish the victim for speaking up. Remember our student? After her parents filed a complaint, she suddenly got hit with disciplinary referrals for unexcused absences while she was at home dealing with the trauma. And then there's gaslighting. That's when they deny what happened, twist the story, and try to make the victim feel like they're the crazy one. So what's the real cost of all this? I mean, this goes way beyond just being unfair. These actions have serious, measurable impacts. And we're talking about everything from deep psychological trauma all the way to major legal trouble for the school. This right here is probably the most important thing to understand. Look at this chart. The research is crystal clear. Institutional betrayal is a huge predictor for more severe, long-lasting PTSD. It's not like the trauma just gets a little bit worse. It's on a whole other level. The betrayal doesn't just add to the harm. It multiplies it. And it's not just PTSD, not by a long shot. We're talking about much higher rates of depression and anxiety, a greater risk of suicidal thoughts. It can turn a single traumatic event into something far more complicated and long-term. It completely destroys a person's ability to trust anyone in authority. And incredibly, it's even been linked to worse physical health problems later in life. Now, here's the really crucial part. Institutional betrayal isn't just some abstract psychological concept. All those behaviors we just talked about, the minimizing, the retaliation, the sham investigations, that's the exact stuff that lawyers use to prove legal liability. It's the definition of what the law calls deliberate indifference. Basically, a total and conscious disregard for a student's safety and rights. Okay, so I know this all sounds pretty hopeless. It feels like you're up against a system that holds all the cards. But you're not powerless. You can fight back. And the way you do it is by taking back control of the narrative with cold, hard facts. I absolutely love this quote. We convert trauma into code. Think about that. It completely changes how you see documentation. It's not just about writing stuff down. It's about translating that messy, painful, confusing experience into a structured, logical set of evidence, a code that they simply cannot argue with or ignore. So how do you do it? It's brilliant in its simplicity. It's a dual timeline. On one timeline, you log every single time the harm was reported. On this date, my child reported the assault. On this date, we asked for a safety plan. Then, on a second timeline, right next to it, you log the school's response. On this date, they did a sham investigation. On this date, they retaliated with a disciplinary notice. When you put those two timelines next to each other, the betrayal becomes impossible to deny. It's right there in black and white. Here's the whole protocol, broken down into 5 clear, actionable steps. 1. Create those dual timelines. 2. As you go, label every one of the school's actions with the type of betrayal it is. Minimization, retaliation, whatever. 3. Get evidence from therapists that specifically says the school's response is making the trauma worse. 4. Go through the school's own rulebook and find every single policy they broke. And 5. Put it all together and send a formal letter demanding they acknowledge what they've done. Now you've got them on the record. And that, right there, is the whole point. This is why it's so powerful. The institution's main weapons are gaslighting, confusion, and trying to rewrite history. Your meticulous documentation is the antidote. It creates a solid, unchangeable record. It's the ultimate tool for accountability, building a case that they simply cannot talk their way out of. And this really brings us back to the most fundamental, heartbreaking question of all. If the very institution that's supposed to protect a child, the place they are legally required to be every single day, actually becomes the source of their trauma, where is that child supposed to turn for safety? It's an impossible situation, and it's exactly why we have to understand this, recognize it, and know how to fight back. It's absolutely essential.